Hi, I'm Dave Epstein, and welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom. I'm here today with Mark Richardson, who's the Director of Horticulture at the New England Wildflower Society's Garden in the Woods, and we are going to be talking about trees and shrubs and how to select them. So Mark, you've brought a bunch of plants today, and you're going to be telling us some things to look for that are good and also some things that are bad.
That's right, that's right. Oftentimes people seem to be a little bit intimidated when they go to the garden center. It's really important to inspect a plant before you buy it. For example, this Ilex verticillata, or winterberry holly, looks like a great plant. It's very healthy, has a ton of top growth, but if you look, it's really quite loose in the pot. This is not a plant I would recommend buying. You're not going to have much success establishing this plant in your landscape.
So Mark, that's some of the bad stuff that we don't want. What about some of the good things?
Yeah, I mean, some of the good things, it's always important to pull your plant out of the pot. Once you've decided that it's not too loose in the pot and you feel like it's pretty well rooted, any good nursery will allow you to pull their plants out of the pots, and you should really inspect the root system. We can see on this oak that it's got a fairly healthy root system, lots of active, nice white, fresh roots growing on the outside, little heavy rooting on the bottom. I'm not really overly concerned with this plant. I think it's got a good healthy root system and will establish very well in the landscape. And this is, I believe it's a red maple, or Acer rubrum. Now, one of the things that's really important when you're in the nursery is you want to make sure that the tree looks like it's in an appropriate size pot. This one is quite tall for this small 1-gallon pot. It's telling me that it's been in the pot for too long.
Okay.
This is probably a plant that was left over from last year's nursery stock, which I'd be okay with, except when we expose the root system, we see a lot of sort of dead roots on the very top here. And we see quite a lot of dead root mass going all the way around. This tree is really just aching to get out of this pot. You always hear about things that are pot bound. This is a great example of a plant that's very pot bound. So we want to make sure to treat this before we put it in the ground. And what we can do is there are a number of different options. We can simply use a fork like this and we can start to tease out some of those roots. It's really important that we get these roots out of the pot-bound nature so that they can start to grow laterally once we get this plant into the ground. There are some other things that we can do. We can use our Felcos, and we can very simply slice those outer roots with our Felcos.
You're being pretty aggressive with that.
Don't be afraid to be aggressive.
Okay.
It's fine. Better to do it this way than to have this tree be in the ground for several years and then tip over in a heavy windstorm. I have one more tree I want us to take a look at.
All right.
And it's another maple. This is a sugar maple. One of the little known facts about the nursery industry is that the nursery industry oftentimes doesn't really care how successful their trees are. A lot of times they are just quickly trying to rifle through hundreds if not thousands of plants. Things oftentimes get planted far too deeply. So this plant in particular is planted about 2 or 3 inches too deep. So what I'd like to do with this is just show you how to really deal with that. Now, when you look at this, it looks like, well, the nursery must have known what they were doing. They planted it at this level. This is where I should plant it in my landscape, when really that's the last thing you should do. What you want to start to do is peel back some of the soil so that you can get down to expose the root flare. Now, sometimes it's a little hard to find that root flare because it's oftentimes planted incredibly deep. As you can see from the dark
where the water
bark
is.
here,
Yeah.
that's where the soil level was. We haven't even really gotten down to the first root yet. So you can see we're about 2.5 inches too deep on this plant. So now we're at the level where we can see the first lateral root coming out on the side. This is our root flare. This is where the tree starts to buttress out that way, and where all of our roots start forming. You want to make sure that you're planting this tree so that that root flare is exposed. It's okay to see some roots on the top of the soil.
I have a little saying that I tell people: an inch high, never die. An inch too low, you never know.
That's exactly right.
For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.